Hey everyone, it's Ethan Ormis back again for another video today, and welcome back to the channel, guys. We're here again for yet another CDL video, and we've got an interesting one today. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Week 2 matches here in Major 2, which we had some pretty solid matches this weekend. I started off the weekend pretty good, getting the first 5 matches right, and then I ended up fumbling the bag completely, ended up going 0-5 in the last 5, so... yeah, I mean, obviously that kind of sucks. I did decent, I guess. Obviously, I kind of went like 50%, I guess. But, yeah, obviously I didn't have a great weekend. Obviously, I had a better week 1. Hopefully, we'll get a better week 2 going. But, yeah, obviously, let's go through the matches. So, first up, let's take a look at the standings now. So, New York still in first in the standings. Toronto still in second, Atlanta still in third, Minnesota still in fourth, I believe. And now, obviously, you can see Optic Texas starting to climb the ranks to get higher and higher every week. And now, I believe in last place is the London Royal Ravens. Seattle continues to fall. And then, yeah, every other team is just kind of floating in the middle there. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how that will continue to grow. Of course, or not necessarily grow, but I guess change. Of course, we've got some very interesting matches coming up next weekend, or I guess this weekend, which we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, I mean, let's take a look at the matches for this past weekend. So I went 100% New York over the Florida Mutineers 3-1. That was a pretty easy series to go through. And then Texas versus Seattle. I thought it was going to be 3-2, and it ended up being a 3-1 win pretty easily in favor of the Optic Texas. I mean, it was a weird series because it went really, really close, but we'll talk about Optic here in a few moments. Anyways, then Toronto sweeps the LA Thieves, so pretty interesting there, of course. I wasn't really expecting that. I expected it to be much closer of a series. That is correct, right? I believe so. Let me just take a look to make sure. Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyways, yeah, obviously a sweep from Toronto. I expected it to be a closer series than what it was. Unfortunately, obviously, I didn't even realize until match day. I never seen the tweet, but of course, Kenny was sick, so Capsule was in for Kenny. So obviously, LA Thieves didn't have the most, or obviously didn't have their full roster, so that kind of sucks as well. But on to Saturday, Vegas and Boston. Boston, like I said, did look better. They did end up winning this series. I thought it was going to go to 5. It ended up being 4. Vegas didn't look great this weekend. They've definitely looked better. They looked better on land. That's probably where they looked the best. So we'll see how that affects them in the future as well. And then LA Thieves versus London was a 3-0 for the Thieves. And yeah, that's obviously the last series I got right. And then, I mean, yeah, like I said, I just fumbled the bag after that. I'm sure a lot of people would have probably chose Toronto over Texas in that series. And obviously it went 3-1 the opposite way from what I predicted. So maybe this Texas team looks or is just a good team. Obviously, I mean, it's not like they're short on talent. They're perhaps the most talented team in the league, but and I'm really not sure, obviously, what to think about this Texas roster yet. I still think they look better with Scump, and I do think Scump was the best player on this team, anyways. But obviously, Dashy back in, maybe roles are a little bit easier for everyone. Everyone's in their appropriate roles more so than anything. Than when Dashy was off the roster. So, yeah, obviously, Toronto didn't have a great series either. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sure most people would have guessed Toronto winning that series. But with that being said, we'll move on to the finale of Saturday, which was Minnesota and Atlanta. And I'm sure no one was predicting this. A sweep from the rocker. I mean, they just played better. They just played smarter. Atlanta made some mistakes. And obviously that ended up costing them that series. And Minnesota took that series over Atlanta. If you had told me that Minnesota would have beat Atlanta and lost to the Gorillas, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. I definitely would have imagined it would have been the other way around. But this Atlanta team is not the same as it was with our cities. They actually lose games. Like 8-5 is one of the worst records we've ever seen from the Atlanta phase in the CDL era. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there's still plenty of time for that to change, but like Atlanta would be up here with this like New York record right now normally. So obviously this team can lose. I do still think that Arcides was better suited for the team rather than Slasher. I don't think the team's bad, obviously, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. And another thing about this game is that I feel like Celium has actually kind of come down to earth a little bit. He's not like this absolute otherworldly human on the sticks I find this year compared to the previous seasons. But obviously, Atlanta I think has 2 matches next week, so those will be interesting to take a look at. Then moving on to Sunday, we've got London versus Vegas, which was interesting. I had Vegas winning, and London actually got the win. Shout out to Asim for finally getting a win. Obviously, that team had made a roster change as well. Don't know what's going on with their roster, but of course, Asim needs help. That is most definitely known. And still one of the most underrated and underappreciated players in the league. He deserves some more love. And yeah, with that being said, moving on to Minnesota and LAG. Like I said, again, I'm sure I would have I would have expected Minnesota to beat the Gorillas, but obviously the Gorillas looked pretty solid on the weekend. Obviously, that was their one match, but they looked pretty good, and they look much better with the roster that they currently have than the one that they started with this year, which is still very odd. But yeah, obviously, I mean, it's working out for 2 out of the 4 players, I guess, in Hook and Arcides. But yeah, so then on to the finale of the weekend. Atlanta actually beats the Subliners. So Atlanta gets swept by Minnesota, then they beat the Subliners, which is very interesting as well. So who knows? I don't even know who is the best team in the league right now. Obviously, you would say probably New York or Toronto, but then like, can you make an argument for Atlanta? Maybe, but they lost to the Rocker. Toronto lost to Texas. Texas is 2-0 with their new roster right now, so maybe it's Texas. Obviously, I don't know right now. And then really quickly, I would like to take a look at Twitter because I want to take a look at what the actual COD League stats are right now for this major so far. So yeah, obviously Seattle 0-3 right now, not looking good for them. Taking a look at next week's matches, it is very possible they go 0-5. They had a very tough week as well. I know a lot of people, myself included, talked about the tough week or the tough matchups that they had or that Texas had, and yeah, Seattle's definitely up there as well. So that is not looking good for them. Again, I could definitely see them going 0-5, which wouldn't be ideal. And then London, obviously 1-3. Right now, they finally get their first win, and surprisingly, 1-3 from the Thieves. Obviously, they haven't looked fantastic. They get to play against the Breach this weekend, so that'll be a fun series. I would probably give the edge to the Thieves right now, but we shall see. And then Vegas 1-2. They get 2 matches this weekend up against New York and Texas, so they don't have some easy matches either. We'll see if they can come away with a win or 2, but if I had to guess, Vegas probably finishes 1-4. Thieves probably 2-3. London probably 1-4 as well. I think they would probably lose to Florida. And then Seattle, honestly, I think is going to go 0-5. Then to Florida, I would say probably 2-3. I mean, it's possible they beat both Boston and London. But I would definitely pick them over London, but I would pick Breach over the Mutineers there as of right now. And then Minnesota 2-2. Obviously, they only have 1 match this week against the Surge, which I do imagine they would win. Atlanta 2-1 right now, which they get the Gorillas and Texas, so that'll be very interesting. The Gorillas 2-1 as well. They get Atlanta and Toronto, so they have a really tough week. That'll be very interesting as well. New York, obviously 2-1 as well. They get Vegas and Seattle. They probably have the easiest week, to be honest. I feel like it would be very unlikely that they go 0-2 this week. I'd be shocked if they even split their matches, but it's possible. And then the Boston Breach also 2-1. They get Florida and LAT. So yeah, I would expect them to beat Florida and lose to LAT probably, but we shall see. And then of course Toronto 3-1 right now. They get the Gorillas, which I will pick them, so I will have them going 4-1. And then Texas, I don't know. I really don't know. I think I'd probably put them 4-1 as well. I don't think there's going to be a flawless team here at Major 2 qualifiers. So yeah, with that being said, guys, I'm intrigued to see how this weekend comes about. Obviously, we'll see what happens later on in the week, and I'll give you my predictions, or my full predictions, in probably the next video. So thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.